Hey guys, Gan at Attktx. I wanted to do a quick install video of our new chamber and our Lazarus valve screw. I've had some different questions on it, so I wanted to kind of shoot this video, give you guys a little bit more insight, talk about the features, and kind of touch on a few things that I think we're going to do for the pre-orders. So starting with our Lazarus valve screw. So Lazarus valve, it's been a pretty big hit from Dye. It's been pretty popular within the autococker community, so we really wanted to be able to bring this over to the Meteor platform as well. The Meteor bodies are actually metric threaded, so you can see our set screw. It's a 3/16 stainless steel construction, has a 006 O-ring on the top, perfectly nests inside the bottom of the Lazarus valve. And so what you're going to do to install this, how I like to do it, is just find the bottom of the valve where the set screw goes into and just kind of pre-line that up with the rest of your bottom holes. And so what I like to do is take something non-marring, right? You don't want to put anything in there you're going to damage either the valve or the inside of the lower tube. And you'll just kind of walk this back in nice and smoothly. Just take your time. That way you won't have to kind of push it out and right, so you kind of get it generally back in there, and then usually what I like to do is I'll take an Allen key and even just kind of recenter it, center it on the inside. So again, 3/16 stainless steel construction is not going to rust on you. The O-rings in there to basically help center the valve, or center the set screw within the valve, and hopefully kind of give it a little bit of resistance so it doesn't walk out a little bit on you. So you're going to find that, of course, with any threads, back it up. Make sure it's in there. Basically, once you feel a little bit of resistance, just snug it down just a little bit. You don't need to kind of drive that in crazy. So that's installed there. Now, what we did here was, if you look at the stock red chamber, it's a pretty cool design. Some of the interesting features of the red chamber, basically, if you've got this expensive anodized body, the red chamber really does multiple things, right? So it has the integrated spring perch. It also holds the front block screw for the front block, and it has both the front frame screw and as well as the VASA threaded hole to hold all of those components. Cool thing about it is, if you've got this expensive body, this really expensive anodizing, you make a mistake, you strip out your body here, you're gonna have to go have this helicoiled, you're gonna have to put it in a vise. Not really something you wanna do with all these expensive guns out there. So the red chamber, in addition to those other features that it does, if you ever were to damage this piece, basically you just change this out and then insert a new one, and you didn't really have to do anything to the to your gun itself, because as you can see, these threaded holes down here, these holes down here are not actually threaded. Don't mind this. This is actually some of the prototypes that we made. They were for quarter 28 because we're thinking about offering that as well. But anyways, these will all be M6 by 20 millimeters, so it'll be a non-issue. Quarter 28 is a little bit larger diameter. So starting with our spring perch, again, the red chamber, great design, but it's very heavy. There's a ton of volume that is not being utilized here, especially for a Lazarus valve as well. You really want to take advantage of that low pressure design. So what we did, as you can see, this thing is extensively milled. We've calculated it to be 4 times the volume of the stock red chamber. You can see some of the air pass. So extremely light. You're looking at 32 grams versus 11 grams. And so kind of starting with our spring perch here, there's a lot of design time, a lot of iterations that went into all of this stuff, but I think we pretty much nailed this piece right here. So it's very aesthetically pleasing, very light. You've got dual flow pass to feed the valve. And one big thing that we did about both of our components for the chamber here is they're actually dual threaded. So you can see there's threads actually on both sides. So if for whatever reason you were to strip out either one of these, you're gonna have, just flip it over and you've got another piece right then and there. You don't need to go buy something else. The other reason we did that is just so it's a little bit easier to line these up, and you don't have to give as much thought to kind of getting them lined up to put them insert into the body. The spring perch here is actually multi-function. So not only does it have the dual airflow paths, the dual threaded position of the front grip frame screw, but also it's inserted and removed with a 10/32 cocking rod. And before I do that, obviously if you weren't using the Lazarus valve, you could use the conical valve spring on the meteor bodies, and so you see we have that perfectly nested in there to utilize that if that's what you want to use. Also, if you wanted to use a 2K spring, we've incorporated that feature as well, either from both sides. This is actually just a sear spring, but you get the idea. So different 2K springs, I know a lot of people, a lot of autococker guys have that. But in the Lazarus valve application, actually the spring is combined with the valve, so you wouldn't actually need it in this particular application. But if you were to install this, what you're gonna do, take either a 10/32 cocking rod or your pump arm, which is also 10/32 threaded. And so what you'll do is you'll just have a light bit of grease on this. I've still got a little bit on there. And same principle, just take this, line it up, and just kind of walk it all the way back to where the front grip frame screw position is. And what I like to do is actually just leave that in there, and then I take my front grip frame screw, and before you just go driving in, make sure it's kind of make sure it's somewhat lined up. Let me get this grease off my hands here. This will be a little bit easier. So what I like to do is just drive this down, and then what you can do is you can actually walk out your cocking rod. So pretty cool design, very simple. You install or remove it the same way. And so once you have your spring perch installed, we'll move on here to the front section. So again, front section, I mean, these things are extremely light. Couple of the features that we did here, again, you either have the option of pre-2K or 2K. So for the guys who want to maybe have a 2K pump kit, they maybe want to have a low pressure chamber, something like a 2K Attktx, which is a very big valve screw or a banjo bolt screw. You can go for something like that. But the other thing that we did is, if you see in comparison here to the stock red chamber, we've moved the O-ring position. In some of these bodies, this machined hole for dowel pins basically to hold a very slender front block design. Some of these actually were machined a little bit too far, and they actually protruded through the lower tube. So if you're a Meteor owner and you're getting a leak that you really can't trace down and you're thinking it's maybe a cup seal, look for something like that. If you have that issue, this is going to be a fix, because basically the position is going to make it a non-issue. Now, a couple other really cool things that we did. We went with a split piece modular design because we wanted to be able to either leave the grip frame on or take out the front half and kind of not disturb the valve or valve spring position and all that stuff. You kind of have to, you would have to get back in there and do everything again. So the length on the inside is actually the perfect position. If you were to, let's say in a scenario, you were to take out the front block and take out the front block screw, you can pull this whole assembly off and do what you need to do up there. Or vice versa, if you were to leave this installed on the inside and then take off the front grip frame screw, because the length is perfectly positioned here, you're not going to lose where the hole is for your valve spring, which is pretty neat. So again, dual threaded, so it's easy to find. If you have any stripping issues, you can go ahead and just use the other side. Extremely light. And so how I like to install this is basically go ahead and take your banjo bolt and thread that in there. And then what you're going to do, same principle, go ahead and just line this up. All right. Another thing that we're going to include in these kits is actually a stainless steel Vasa screw. It's actually a vented or hollow screw as well. You can see this one actually has a little bit of rust on it, so you're gonna have to, you're gonna get rid of that. You're gonna get an upgraded screw, but also you're gonna carry a little bit more volume in this. So what you're gonna do for this, go ahead and just get it lined up. And actually, before I do that, instead of doing that where you're going in blind, what I like to do is actually just come through here and get it set up first. That way you'll be less likely to strip something in or go in at a wrong angle. That reminds me, another reason that these are a split piece design is so that you have a little bit more flexibility in kind of manipulating where the holes are to make sure that that thread gets lined up just perfectly. Here you can see, depending on if you tighten something down before or after, you might kink these holes a little bit to where they're just slightly out of position to where it won't go through. So you want to drive everything in before you get it all tightened down perfectly. So what I like to do is just get that lined up. Go ahead and take this out and drop this into here. Now you're perfectly lined up. This thing will go in no problem. Remember, backwards and then forwards. That'll help seat the thread. And just kind of snug that up there. Okay. Now, pretty straightforward from here. Right, you'll just put on your front block. Both of these are the same size, which are 5mm. Right, so you get that tightened up, and then you'll basically be all assembled. So let me kind of demonstrate what I was referring to before. Actually, I'll just leave this here. And actually, we'll just loosen this. All right, so take that out. And then as I was explaining earlier, actually, let's do this one first. So in that scenario where, let's say you needed to work on your grip frame, if this screw was in and you had a actual valve spring that had pressure on it, kind of like the stock Meteor spring, that valve spring and the pressure may move these past position a little bit, and you'd have to go down in there and redo that. Well, if this is locked in, you can remove your grip frame and that's a non-issue, right? So here's the other thing I was referring to. So, you can take this out and then do what you need to do. Which brings me to another point. We've had a lot of people reach out and talk about wanting to buy individual components. So let me go ahead and just remove this. So again, what you do is you'd come down into here, find your little hole, thread it in, pull it out. Pretty simple, very easy to do. But few people have reached out wanting to maybe buy individual components, right? So they may want to buy an extra front, or people have wanted to buy one of the individual spring perches. And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna offer these obviously as a full kit where you get both sections, front and back, but most likely just for the pre-orders, we'll have to see, because we don't wanna end up in a situation where we have, mismatching fronts and backs. You're gonna be able to buy however many spring perches you want individually for the rear, or vice versa for the fronts in either 2K or pre-2K. Something you may want to do, right? So let's say that you want to utilize the stock front block. You don't want to machine it out for a 2K version. You can go ahead and just purchase a full chamber. But then let's say you had a 2K pump kit. You just wanted the front as well, so you could install your pump, slide this in, and basically use what you wanted for your particular setup. So that's basically it. Just want to give you guys a quick rundown, and we really appreciate you guys supporting Attktx, and we're really looking forward to Tuesday. We'll catch you guys soon.